Chapter 8. Not long after I had learned to read, something happened that really opened my eyes. One day, I was in the woods looking for food. I found a box with 3 books inside. I was very lucky. The books were written in French, the language I had learned. Until that time, all I knew of the world was what I had seen in the cottage. I read the books I found, and I learned what life was like outside of the DeLacy family. I learned about human feelings. I learned some history. One book told a story about God at war with his heavenly creatures. This was more than a tale to me. Then I came to the part about the creation of Adam. I wondered where my creator was. Had he turned from me, as God had from Satan? At this time, I read another book. It was in the pocket of the coat I took from your house, Frankenstein. Now that I could read, I opened it. It was the notebook you wrote in during the 4 months before you created me. In a short time, I had read this notebook. Now I knew who and what I was, and more important, I knew who my creator was. I give these notes back to you, Frankenstein. I now know everything about my birth. I know, too, what an evil person you are. How I hate the day that you gave me life. You made me ugly and horrible. I have lived a life of sadness. All my hands are raised against me. People run when they see me. And I am alone. Always alone. Even the lowest animal on earth has a friend, but I don't. I am alone. All I have, Frankenstein, is you, yet you ran away from me on the very night you gave me life. You must have no heart. But there is more to my story. One beautiful autumn day, Agatha, Felix, and Safi went into town. The old man was left alone in the cottage. I had learned much about him and his family. I knew why the young people helped him so much. He was blind. Knowing that DeLacy was blind might help me. Up until now, I had never spoken to a living soul. There was no one for me to speak to. Besides, I knew from my early days that people would run from me. DeLacy could not see how ugly I was. I wanted to talk with him, but I was afraid to take this chance. I don't know how long I stood at the cottage door, afraid to knock. I almost ran away a few times. Finally, I knocked on the door. "Who is there?" asked the old man. "Come in." I stepped inside. "Pardon me," I said to DeLacy. "I am a tired traveler in need of rest. May I sit a few minutes by your fire?" "Of course," the old man said. "I am afraid I can't be of much help to you. I can't offer you any food. We have so little." He couldn't know that I had seen how poor they were. I told DeLacy that I had food. I said that all I needed was a little rest by the fire. I sat down. For a few minutes we did not talk. I didn't know what to do next. I had never talked with anyone before. Finally, the old man spoke. "You speak my language. Are you French?" I smiled as I answered his question. "No," I said. "But I was taught by a French family." This was quite true, but the old man didn't know that I meant his family. "And what brings you to Germany?" he asked. It was easy for me to explain why I was there. "I have come to see the family that taught me," I said. "They are wonderful people. In my way, I love them all. But they have never seen me. I am afraid they won't like me. They may chase me away. If they do that, I will have no friends in all the world." "Don't worry, stranger," the old man said to me. "If these people are as good as you say, they would never chase you away. Why should they? I told Lacey that I was not very pleasant to look at, and that I was afraid that the family would only see how ugly I was on the outside. They might never know how much I loved them. "As to your looks, I do not know," said the old man. "I am blind, but why not trust these people you love so? If you have done nothing wrong, they will not drive you away. If you tell me your story, maybe I can help you. Do these people live near here?" I told him that the family lived very close by. Then he asked me the name of the family. Just as I was about to answer, the young people came back to the cottage. My heart was filled with fear. "Now is the time," I cried. "You can save me. The family I spoke of is yours. Don't let Felix, Agatha, and Safi drive me away." DeLacy stood up in surprise. "Great God!" he yelled. "Who are you?" I fell to my knees and wrapped my arms around the old man's leg. "Save me!" I cried as the cottage door opened. Then the 3 people walked in and saw me. Agatha fainted and Safi ran screaming from the cottage. Felix tore me away from the old man. He picked up a stick and began to hit me. I could have torn him to pieces. But I thought of how much I loved the DeLacys. I also thought about how much I had learned from them. With tears in my eyes, I ran from the cottage. Chapter 9. I spent the night hiding in the woods. Once the sun came up, I began to think more clearly. It had been a mistake to speak to the old man that way. I should have stayed only a minute or so. If I had done this a few times, he would have gotten used to speaking to me. Then things might have turned out differently. I went back to the shack and hid in the bushes. I looked for old DeLacy. I didn't see him. Felix was there. He was talking to a man I had never seen before. The stranger seemed angry. "This will cost you all you have," he said to Felix. "I don't care," Felix said. "We cannot stay here. My father's life is in danger. You don't know. You didn't see the thing that had a hold of him." And so, the DeLacys moved away. The only happiness in my life went with them. Once again, I was alone in the world. I heard men out in the woods. I was sure they were looking for the terrible thing. They were looking for me. But where could I go? I stopped feeling sad. I began to feel angry. One night I went back to the cottage. I burned it down. Then I began to think about you, Frankenstein. It was your fault that my life was so unhappy. I decided to punish you. I looked in your notebook. I saw that you lived in Geneva. I remembered from Safi's lessons that Geneva was in Switzerland. I began to walk from Germany to Switzerland. It was a long, hard trip. Crossing mountains the way I did would have killed any other man. I would have welcomed death. But you made me too strong, Frankenstein. The trip didn't kill me. I was in Switzerland when another awful thing happened. I was out in the woods when I heard voices. I hid behind a tree near a fast mountain stream. A little girl ran out of the trees. She was laughing. Far behind her, I heard other voices. The girl must have been playing hide and seek. She wasn't watching where she was running. She got too close to the stream and slipped into the fast waters. She screamed. I saw her and jumped in after her. The waters were strong. Any other man could not have saved her, but I did. I got her safely to the side of the stream. As soon as she got a good look at me, she began to scream for help. "Please, I won't hurt you," I said, but it was no use. She kept screaming. Just then, A group of men ran out of the woods. One of them had a gun. He fired at me. I was hit in the shoulder. Before he could shoot again, I ran deeper into the woods. I was in terrible pain. I didn't know if the bullet was still in my shoulder or not. It didn't matter. I had no way of getting it out. Still, I kept walking toward Geneva. As I walked, I thought, so, this is what I get for being good. I get shot. I thought again of who had caused this pain. It wasn't the man with the gun. It was you, Frankenstein. You made me the ugly thing that I am. But I would get back at you. Once I got to Geneva. After 2 months, I finally reached Geneva. I found a quiet place near the lake and hid myself. I thought about all that had happened in my short life. As the sun went down, I heard some sounds in the bushes nearby. Suddenly, a little child burst upon my hiding place. He was a beautiful child. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. I looked at him. He was so young and sweet. I thought, maybe I can talk to this boy. He hasn't lived long enough to think I'm ugly. Children will trust. They haven't been taught to hate yet. Thinking this, I grabbed the boy's hand. As soon as he saw me, he put his hands in front of his eyes and screamed. "Child, why are you screaming?" I asked. "I won't hurt you. Just listen to me." "Let me go, you monster!" he cried. "You want to tear me into pieces and eat me all up. Let go, or I'll tell my papa." I held on to his hand. I told him to come with me, or he would never see his family again. "No, I won't go with you," the child cried. "Let me go, or my papa will take care of you. He's an important man. He's Mr. Frankenstein. Don't you dare hurt me." As soon as I heard the name, I became angry. "Frankenstein!" I cried. "You belong to him. I promised myself I would get even with Frankenstein, and I will start with you." The child began to scream even more. I tried to quiet him. I grabbed his throat, but I am so strong and the child was so small. In a moment, he was dead. At first, I felt bad. Then I was filled with joy. I even clapped my hands in a hellish joy. This child belonged to your family. I would show you. I would bring as much sadness to you as you had to me. As I looked down at the child, I saw something on his coat. It was a pin with a picture of a beautiful woman on it. I took it. I walked away, looking at the lovely face. It was a kind face. As I looked at it, I began to feel better. But then I became angry again. Such a woman would never look at me without hatred in her eyes. I walked on. Soon, I came to a barn. A pretty young woman was sleeping inside. I bent over her and whispered sweet words of love to her. She moved in her sleep. I drew back. I knew that if she woke up, she would see me and scream. A woman could never be my friend. Suddenly, I was filled with anger at her. She would run from me if she saw me. She would never know what I was really like inside. She would see me only as an ugly monster. Well, if she would make me suffer, then she would suffer too. From listening to Felix, I had learned something about the law. If the pin was found on her, the police would blame her for the boy's death. I slapped it into her pocket. Then I ran away from the barn. I have stayed near Geneva since then. I knew that one day I would find you, Frankenstein. Now I have. You will never be rid of me. I will bring sadness and harm to all you love, unless you do one thing for me. I am alone, and everyone runs from me. I want company. I want someone as ugly as I am. Frankenstein, will you create another like me? but this one will be a woman. You will make a wife for me.